Have you ever thought of your dentist as a manufacturer? We're looking at how a dental lab is improving the patient experience with 3D printing in this episode of The Cool Parts Show.
Season 2 of The Cool Parts Show is brought to you by Carpenter Additive. We're touring their Emerging Technology Center in Athens, Alabama. Stick around to the end of this episode. We're going to talk about heat treating and machining. Now back to the show. I'm Pete.
I'm Stephanie.
And we're with AdditiveManufacturing.media.
This is The Cool Parts Show.
So this is our show all about cool parts made by manufacturers, made through 3D printing. And yet, Stephanie, I'm looking at what you brought us and I'm seeing teeth.
That's right. So the teeth that you're seeing, this model was 3D printed, but the thing we're going to talk about mostly today is the mouth guard here. Both of these items were 3D printed, and the guard is made for this exact set of teeth.
So I guess what I'm feeling is we're headed into another mass customization story, which is really cool.
So you're sort of right. It is another story where the product is being made to a specific individual on demand. It's something that's enabled by scanning technology just in the last couple of years. But where it's a little bit different is that mouth guards and dental devices like these have always been custom made. The difference is that with 3D printing, they're getting away from this really manual analog process and moving into a digital dentistry workflow.
So basic questions. You called this a mouth guard. Tell me more about it. What's this for?
Okay, so technically this is an occlusal guard. This is the kind of mouth guard you'd wear like if you grind your teeth at night, or maybe you've got some dental work that you need to protect.
Mm-hmm. It's 3D printed. Tell me more. What kind of 3D printing process?
So both the model and the mouth guard were made with the Formlabs Form 2, so a stereolithography process where you've got the vat of resin and the build plate that's rising as the resin is being cured. Both were made by a company called Spectrum Dental Printing, and that's a 3D printing dental lab that's spun out of Spectrum Dental and Prosthodontics. So I want to introduce you to Dr. Bradley Purcell, the president and CEO, and Sarah Wells, the COO, to explain how the printing business got started.
Spectrum Dental Printing got started as kind of an off-branch piece of Spectrum Dental Prosthodontics. We bought some printers in the practice to kind of use in-house to utilize some of the digital scanning technology that we already had.
The problem is with models is they break, they chip, they abrade, the patient has to come back in, and we thought, gosh, if we have the digital image, why can't we just make something out of plastic that if it broke, we could just print it again? And so we said, why don't we just get a printer? All of a sudden we could create a model. It was less effort, it was saved to the cloud, and we realized the power from that. And from there we realized, geez, we don't have to stop here. With this program we have, it says we can make bite guards and surgical guides and dentures and temporaries and all these other things, so why don't we try and do that?
So are these your teeth?
Okay, so those are not my teeth, but I did have a mouth guard 3D printed. So I went to Spectrum to find out how 3D printing is changing the process for devices like this.
I'm not going to ask you to put that in, but I am interested. Tell me all about it. Where do you want to start?
So I guess I'll start where it starts for most patients, in the dentist chair. So at Spectrum, they use an intraoral scanner made by 3Shape, and it's about the size of your electric toothbrush. So there's a technician who will just kind of move that scanner around your mouth, and it's just really rapidly capturing all of these images of your teeth and your gums. And so you get to see like this digital rendering of your mouth, and they take that data cloud, do some post-processing to arrive at an STL file that goes to the printer. Once these are printed, it only takes a couple hours. There's really light, minimal post-processing that happens, and then it's ready to go.
So in listening to you talk about that, and in seeing the footage, a couple things strike me. I guess one of them is how additive manufacturing needs data, right? We keep encountering that. Particularly these mass customization applications, these tailor-made products. what makes them possible is 3D printing, but that's not all of it. What makes them possible also is the level of measurement and scanning technology we've come to. And so I'm watching that scanner that they were using while you were in the dentist chair, and it's amazing. Just seeing this actual super accurate rendition of the inside of your mouth take form. That's one thing I saw. Another thing is how additive manufacturing makes it possible to produce within this really compact space. So Spectrum is making these dental devices for its patients and for the patients of other dentists. And they don't think of themselves as a manufacturer, but they're doing all that production in that little fleet of 3D printers that's like sitting on part of a tabletop.
Yeah, so hold that thought because we're going to get to that a little bit later.
Okay.
But what I want to kind of emphasize now is how fast and efficient the process is when you think about how they had to do it previously. So before all this digital technology, if you needed a mouth guard like this, you'd have to go to the dentist and they'd take an impression. So if you've had braces or anything like that, you've got like that tray of sort of putty material and you've got to put it in your mouth and kind of hold it there. It's not very comfortable. They pull that out and then they pour dental stone, that kind of plaster material, into it to make the model. Well, if you need a mouth guard, what happens then is that model becomes a thermoform tool. So they've got a sheet of acrylic, they're heating it up and then forming it down over that model. And then as a result of actually getting the device off, you're probably going to destroy the model. It's sacrificial tooling, basically. And so there are all these manual steps, and there are actually a lot of things that can go wrong in that process. So here's Sarah describing some of the problems you might have.
There's a lot of things that can go wrong. First thing is just getting a really good first impression. You know, if the patient is gagging or they move or material is really temperature sensitive, so if it sets up too fast, if you don't get everything in that first impression, you gotta start over. From there, second is having a really good pour. If you have bubbles in your stone when you're pouring, you'll get bubbles in the model and it won't be accurate, or you could knock the model off the counter when you turn around and break it. When you actually fabricate the occlusal guard, when it sucks down over the stone, typically that destroys your model. So when you try to take that plastic back off of that stone, 90% of the time you're going to break the teeth off. So if you didn't get it perfectly, or as you're trimming it, you nick a spot, it's starting back over at that impression appointment, which of course patients do not like to get a phone call that they need to come back and do those impressions over again.
So by moving to 3D printing for a device like this, you're getting something that's easier to make, it's faster, it's more accurate, and it's also more repeatable, easier to replace.
So I'm hearing all those advantages, right? But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about this as a patient. You know, so long ago I did have braces, and that goop up in your mouth, I had that. And you're describing a way of doing this that for the patient is way more comfortable.
Oh yeah, so that's a huge part of this. So Dr. Purcell had some things to say about how this improves patient experience.
Well, first, the patient experience is so much more pleasant. And that in and of itself, creating a better experience for the patient, is worth it alone. Because everything's less tense. And what happens is it's less taxing on the body. It's more efficient. When your patient's more comfortable, you can work faster, which they enjoy as well. Impressions were always kind of this nefarious thing that gave us issues, and you'd make them and you remake them, and the poor patient's gagging and these things. And now with digital, you always get the impression. There's no missed impression. You see it. It's right there. It's more comfortable. It's far faster. What typically takes 5 minutes in the mouth, we can do a whole mouth in almost a minute and a half.
Okay, so earlier I noted there's a fleet of printers, and they're doing what looks to me like a whole lot of, call it production, right in a small area, a small amount of space. And you said hold that thought. I'm still holding that thought. What do you got?
All right, so Spectrum Dental has obviously seen the benefits of this for their technicians and for their patients. They're now offering their printing services to other dental labs as well. And the business is kind of taking off. So they're getting ready to add new technologies, more printers, and they're going to move into a dedicated space just for the printing business. So it's going to start to look a little bit more like manufacturing the way we normally think about it.
Okay, so you started by talking about how, something that never occurred to me, but dentists have always been making tailor-made products. They've always been manufacturers, kind of, custom manufacturers. Now you're describing a system where this dental practice really will become a manufacturer. They have this digital workflow process that is enabling them to become a manufacturer now serving other dental practices.
That's right, and it's going to be faster, easier, and a lot more repeatable, so you can have that guard made or maybe remade at a moment's notice.
All right, I think I got this. Occlusal guard, mouth guard, 3D printed, made through stereolithography. This process, it's enabled by scanning technology. The measurement technology had to get sophisticated enough to give all the data that 3D printing would need to make a really accurate, customized mouth guard. But now that scanning technology exists, 3D printing is possible as a way of realizing a tooling-less procedure for making this mouth guard. The process is digital now. It's more accurate, it's way more comfortable for the patient, and if you need a new guard, you don't have to take another impression, you just hit the button again and start the process again. And maybe most significantly of all for the future and for Spectrum Dental, this idea is going bigger. They're becoming a bigger, broader manufacturer that can take patient data from scans like this and make mouth guards and make other dental devices for a whole range of other dental practices.
Yeah, so I think you got it. That's it for this episode of the Cool Parts Show. If you want to learn more about Spectrum Dental Printing, you can find our story about them in the show notes or at additivemanufacturing.media.
Email us if you want to talk about the show. If you've got a cool part you think might make a great episode, coolparts@additivemanufacturing.media.
And if you like the show, we hope you'll subscribe. Thanks for watching.
I'm at Carpenter Additive's Emerging Technology Center in Athens, Alabama. Contract additive manufacturing facility, all the steps in-house for complete additive production. A metal 3D printed part isn't done after the 3D printing. On the outside, fine tolerances, which is why Carpenter has extensive machining capability. But then on the inside, stresses from the additive build that potentially need to be relieved. Machining and heat treating go together. Carpenter engineers think about how to apply them both, what sequence to apply them in.
You might do a heat treatment before or after machining, depending on your material as well as your finished part. So you might have a rough machining step, and then you want to harden it afterwards, and then do a finished machining step. And this is to make it easier on our machinists, as well as to make sure our parts are the highest quality possible. So naturally, during the additive process, you're welding each layer together. You have a lot of heat being pumped through that part. So if you were to cut it off the plate directly afterwards, you might have deformations, bending, or other defects. So the first heat treatment we usually like to do is called stress relief, which basically just relieves those internal and residual stresses from the actual printing process. Now, the other things you might want to do is something like a solution treatment. Now, you also have things like aging or hardening that we can also do in-house as well.